Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to unpack a truly transformative concept from David J. Schwartz. We're looking at the visionary's blueprint today, and the core premise here is honestly as simple as it is profound. The size of our success is absolutely directly determined by the size of our thinking. And look, we aren't talking about just wishful thinking or sitting around daydreaming here. No way. We are talking about a fundamental shift in how we approach our capabilities, our daily actions, and ultimately our entire trajectory in life.
Right off the bat, I want you to absorb this massive quote from Benjamin Disraeli. Life is too short to be little. Schwartz uses this exact thought to kick off his entire philosophy because, honestly, it perfectly hits the nail on the head regarding the problems so many of us face. We suffer from what you could call the disease of small thinking. We aim for these safe, tiny wins, and we just accept the mediocre because, well, we've kind of convinced ourselves that's all we really deserve. But today, we are breaking out of that mindset for sure.
So I've got to ask you directly, are you selling yourself short? Take a second and really think about it. Because the source material makes a totally fascinating observation here. Successful people are not superhuman. They don't possess some crazy super intellect, there is literally nothing mystical about them, and their success isn't just based on blind luck. They're just ordinary folks who have simply developed an intense, completely unshakable belief in themselves. When you doubt your capabilities, you are the one putting a hard ceiling on your own potential.
Let's move to section 1 and see how this builds. The power of thinking big.
I want to force you to self-identify here for a minute. Consider the petty thinker's approach versus the big thinker's approach. The petty thinker is always looking for ways to avoid work, right? Always complaining about the competition and trying to get ahead by cutting corners or blowing minor errors totally out of proportion. But the big thinker, they look for ways to actually help others, they see the future as promising, and they figure out ways to increase their income by providing genuine value. So which side of this actually defines your daily actions?
The defining factor between those two mindsets isn't raw brain power. Success is built on belief. That I am positive I can attitude generates the literal power, skill, and energy you need to actually get things done. When you truly believe you can do it, your mind stops looking for excuses and just naturally starts figuring out the how-to. Remember, whatever you deeply believe to be true basically becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Moving right along to section 2, seeing what can be.
Consider this brilliant real estate anecdote. A highly successful real estate agent doesn't just look at a vacant, rundown farm and sell it for its current dirt value. No, instead they sell the property for what it can be. They paint a vivid picture of the future. And because they sell the physical acreage plus the idea, they command a much higher price than their competitors. The big takeaway here is that visualization adds value to everything. Whether it's a house, a business, or even yourself, value is totally proportionate to the ideas for using it. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how beautifully this concept applies to everyday situations. The source material tells this great story of a department store executive who overheard a salesperson arguing with a complaining customer. The salesperson literally said they weren't going to let a $1.98 customer take up all their time. But the executive, he did the math. He found out the average customer actually spent $362 a year in that store. That salesperson completely missed the big picture. When you think small, you treat a $362 annual asset like a $1.98 nuisance.
Let's transition into section 3, the magic of goals.
Progressive, massive corporations don't just plan for tomorrow, they plan 10 to 15 years ahead. They gauge their efforts, they build capacity, and they run research for a full decade out. You need to treat your own life with that exact same level of massive ambition. You need a 10-year vision. You've got to form an image right now of the incredible person you want to be a decade from now. What are you building? Because if you don't know where you're going, how will you ever know if you've arrived? Break through that self-imposed ceiling.
And listen, goals aren't just rigid corporate planning tools. They literally have magic powers. Setting a massive goal actually cures boredom and multiplies your physical and mental energy. The text talks about surrendering to your desires. When you let a massive, audacious objective completely obsess you, it provides what Schwartz calls automatic instrumentation. Basically, it's like setting your brain on autopilot. Suddenly, you don't have to force yourself to make good choices. Your goal naturally guides your daily decisions and actions right toward your ultimate destination.
Okay, on to section 4, becoming an action taker.
So the crucial point is really understanding the difference between two types of people. First, you have the activationist. An activationist is a doer. They take action, they follow through on ideas, and they get things done.
The opposite of that is the passivationist, the person who suffers from that dreaded wait-and-see attitude. They postpone doing things until they've somehow proven they shouldn't do them or until it's just simply too late.
To be an activationist, you have to adopt these traits immediately. You must accept that it will literally never be the perfect time. You've got to be willing to take imperfect action. You have to move forward whether you feel like it or not, and you absolutely must stop overanalyzing every little detail. Waiting for absolute certainty before acting just means you will never, ever get anything done. Massive momentum is generated by relentless action, not by sitting around waiting for perfect weather.
Which brings us to our final concept, Section 5, one step at a time.
And this brilliantly illustrates the execution phase. During World War II, author Eric Severin and several others had to parachute into the mountainous jungle on the Burma-India border. They were facing a brutal 140-mile trek in intense August heat and monsoon rains. His feet were completely destroyed in just the first hour. He thought it was flat out impossible to walk 140 miles. But, as he noted, he knew he could hobble to the next ridge, and then the next friendly village. It's like a giant puzzle. A house is built one brick at a time, a football game is won one play at a time. Every massive accomplishment is really just a series of little accomplishments strung together.
So here is your ultimate bulletproof formula for success. It is persistence, perfectly blended with experimentation. You make plan A, and you take action, because remember, we are activists now. Then you measure the results. If plan A fails, you do not quit. You experiment. You make plan B. Think of it like an airplane pilot. If the destination airport is fogged in, the pilot doesn't just give up and crash the plane, right? They find an alternative landing field. When we hit a detour, we don't change our massive goals. We just travel a different route.
Well, we've covered a ton of ground today, from the pure power of belief to the magic of massive goals to the absolute necessity of taking imperfect action. So I want to leave you with a direct, provocative challenge right now. What is your massive, audacious 10-year goal? And, more importantly, what is the very next step you are going to take today to hobble to that next ridge? Remember, life is way too short to be little. Think big, take action, and start building your visionary blueprint right now.